Welcome to Industry Vancouver, conversations about the residential real estate industry with Andrew Hasman and Jeff Bennett. Hey, good morning, everybody.
Jeff Bennett, good morning. And good morning to Karim Nanji from our office, esteemed guest today.
Yes, an award-winning realtor, past finance director at a real estate investment firm. You worked at the city, you've developed some properties personally, as well as being on the acquisition side and marketing for multifamily projects for developers. Karim and I have actually co-listed and sold a number of properties together in the development land space. A super nice guy, extra competent, extra generous human being. Welcome, Karim.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's exciting for me.
Yeah, a wealth of knowledge that you're going to bring to the podcast today, which Jeff and I welcome. And you obviously bring an area of knowledge in the multiplex area and construction, which I think is a great add-on to today's podcast for our listeners. So enjoy. Jeff, take it away. But before we start, I do want to say one thing. You gave a shout out to the Blue Jays a couple of weeks ago. I'm giving a shout out to the Whitecaps, if anyone can see that.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Final on Saturday. And I think it's really exciting. We got two superstars, Messi versus Muller. It's going to be a great game. I'm a big soccer fan, and I think Vancouver needs a win. So it's great for our city.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Good time for our standard disclaimers. We want to offer relevant, actionable information. That said, this is not investment advice, and we're better realtors than accountants, lawyers, and financial advisors. Full disclosure, we are all owners of Vancouver real estate. We like it when prices go up, and we make a fee when we help you. Also, if you're enjoying this, forward it to a friend.
And subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe to the channel, yes.
Yeah, right.
Like and subscribe. Is that what the kids say?
All right.
I saw a headline last night that I was reading, and it said that the board is on track to have its worst year this century. And I know it's their job to get eyeballs on stuff, but I thought that was a bit over the top. So I went back and checked the data, and it's likely going to be accurate, but I wanted to put some perspective on it. So if I go back over the last 10 years, there's been a range of the number of sales in a given year. Anywhere from, I think, almost 44,000 was the highest in 2021. There's been a lot of years in sort of the mid to higher 30s, even some into the 40s. The last few years, we've been tracking just under 29,000, just under 27,000, 26,000. In 2008, the global financial crisis, 24,626 sales. So this year so far, there's been about 22,500 sales published on the MLS. And we're probably going to end up the year around 24,000. So yes, it is correct. There's still going to be 24,000 homes sold this year, which means that 48,000 people bought and or sold. So there's two sides of every transaction, right?
Yeah, I think you're just trying to sugarcoat it. And I agree. There's been up thousands of people have bought and sold, that it has been a quiet year. It's been actually unprecedented. I mean, you and I have both been in the business for over 30 years.
Yes.
And this is one of the most prolonged sort of quiet stretches we've been in the market. And this year, of course, is sort of off the charts. It's definitely quite something. When I heard the same statistic, 25 years, quarter century, and I was kind of blown away. I wasn't aware it was actually that slow a year, but yeah, interesting, right? It's been an eye popper. There's no question.
The thing that I wanted to underscore is that it's not like no homes are selling. And yes, there are less homes selling, but it's not half the amount. It's a little bit less. And yes, it will be the lowest. That said, if you've got a great agent, you're realistic about the market, and you've got a good home, well presented, properly marketed, and well negotiated, you can still sell. You can still sell quickly and take advantage to trade up, to downsize, find that once in a decade place when it comes on the market. I guess I'm just feeling a little bit more positive about things than the headline would indicate. And I also think back to 2009, after the global financial crisis. Coming out of 2008, everyone was pretty pessimistic. And it ended up in 2009 being a great year for the number of transactions. I mean, prices didn't really start moving yet, but there was still a lot of sales and nice for us, not that many agents working.
Yeah. And I think that as we get into 26, I've been saying this in my newsletters. I think once we get into the spring, I think we're going to start to see increases over the same period last year. And that's going to sort of fuel a little bit more of a positive buyer sentiment as we start to see some sales increases. And I think that's going to set us up for a slightly better 26 than 25. So I'm slightly optimistic that the year coming, it's not going to be a boom year. I don't think prices are going to start rising, and if they do, it's very slight. It's more just we're going to see activity levels pick up. And you and I have talked about this before, Jeff, is that people can only put their plans on hold for so long. They got things going on in their lives, whether it's retirement or they've had kids and they need more space. And at some point, people have got to get off the fence and buy or sell just because things are going on in their lives. And I just think we've hit the bottom. That's my feeling. And I think we're going to start to see 26 turn the corner. That's what I'm feeling.
Friend, what are you seeing out there from the developers? What are they talking about?
Yeah, so on the development side, like when you're talking about the bigger developers, definitely I would say that they're kind of looking at, hey, I've already got a lot of inventory in the pipeline, and some of my projects I'm actually in hold mode. I'm not actually going to develop these right now because they just don't see a market or a path to sell some of that product. So they've got essentially a pipeline for the future, or depending on the developer, some of these guys that were trying to move up to a larger scale developer, they're actually in a bit of financial trouble. So some of the lenders have either taken over their projects, there's court ordered sales, there's foreclosures. So that's more in the condo space. I would say that space is there's just too much product there. I think the condo market's going to be lagging for a little while.
Yeah.
Personally, I think those premium condos though, like a Yaletown view condo to me that has an unobstructed view, well, you're not going to replicate that,
Yeah.
right?
So it's a one of a kind. It's just
cookie cutter, a 2 bedroom, 2 bath that's like 700 square feet in all these new development. There's going to be just a flood of those in the marketplace. So as an investor, I'm not high on condos right now, but I think for a buyer that wants to get into a condo, they have a lot of opportunity and a lot of purchasing power and a lot of negotiating power right now for the product that's on there. Now, on the smaller scale, when we go in down to townhouses, multiplexes, duplexes, there's definitely been a slowdown in that area. And there were a lot of people that were going into that place. So you'll see some really nice product actually on the market. And you're seeing it starting to burn through. People are starting to buy it. It may be trading at a lower number than the developer had hoped for when the market was hotter, but we are seeing some movement there. The issue though is that the land cost has to come down because the cost of construction just has not come down at all. In some cases, actually gone up. And so, yeah, because the tariffs are actually causing some of those products that we would have been putting into new units are actually cost a little more. So labor is essentially flat. It hasn't really gone down, but it had gone up so much. And there's still a lot of work for these guys. Some of those projects that were condo buildings have turned into rental buildings. So construction workers still have a lot of projects to work on. So their labor cost hasn't really dropped.
Well, it's interesting too, because sorry, Andrew, we haven't seen the amount of rental buildings, like purpose-built rental buildings, since the 50s or the 60s in the amounts that it was being built, right?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a lot of that stuff coming on board, and they're all over the place. These 6-story and high-rise rental buildings, and you wonder who's going to go into those places. Are there enough renters out there to fill these places up? It's going to be quite interesting. I look at that building at the corner of Granville and West Broadway, where the Royal Bank was, that massive tower. It's all like, oh my God, where are all those people going to come from? That's just my feeling.
Well, and then it's the only one, right?
Cambie and 41st, same thing. There's a lot of these really large scale buildings, and some of them were actually condo projects that have been converted. Not those two in particular, but the fact is there's a lot of rental projects, and really it was just like, okay, we can't hold these. Hold the land costs are too high.
You got to do something. Yeah.
I think really on the flip side, on the rental market, we're seeing the rental rates have been dropping consistently month over month for over a year in general. And, when you see that, and immigration is zero, it's actually, I think it was a net negative last I looked in Metro Vancouver. And so there's a lot of people here. Rates are dropping. And then you couple that with the foreign student ban or reductions all across Metro, you're seeing huge reductions in rental. So the only way that you get out of that, and even for Canada's economy and population, aging population, we need immigration. But when the previous Liberal government was in power, they fully turned the tap on without any conscience,
Yeah.
and it was just too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like we just couldn't handle it. Rates were going up. People were complaining. It was a bit too much. And I think they've completely turned the tap on because they're trying to figure out what's the right setting to have this kind of not impact people so much. And so that's the next lever. And I think, Andrew, that's to your point, you were talking about spring next year. And I'm like, really, it's when that tap starts turning on. Right now is actually a really amazing window for buyers to negotiate.
I think so too. Yeah. It's a
I
total
personally am
opportunity.
looking for product for myself, right? Because I'm like, hey, if I can get into something that works, this is the time. Because I think once that gauge starts hitting and the immigration tap gets turned back on, then we might be in a completely different market. Not saying it's going to blow up like it had, but something that's starting to look a lot more positive.
If you got a 5-year time horizon or longer, I mean, why wouldn't you be out there really shopping carefully, but looking for some great value? Because in 5 years, you got to think that things will have slowly started to right themselves. Prices started to maybe slowly appreciate. And you look back and go, yeah, wow, 2026 was a great time to buy. There was total opportunity out there, right?
Karim, let me ask you this. Do you find that if there are sort of medium or medium-sized developers or new developers whose eyes were a little bit bigger than their abilities, they've contracted to buy sites or they're actually sitting on sites partially through development, is there an opportunity for some of the larger, more established developers to go back and take a look at some of those sites? Like I can remember in 2016, 2017, the Canby corridor, the prices that they were getting there, and I know there was a lot of sites that turned over. I don't see them developed yet. And I just wonder, are they being held by people who can hold them? Or is that an opportunity for the larger developers to go in and say, hey, let's take a look at building this thing out?
Yeah, the really large developers, and Jeff, you know some of them really well. I think they're in pick and choose mode, right?
Yeah.
And with the really large developers, they have so much governmental influence. They're in conversations with different levels of government regularly that they can pick and choose to a point where they're like, hey, those guys are in trouble. We'll come in, we'll save them. And what happens is lenders are coming directly to them and saying, hey, and like, do you want to come into partnership? And then really, do you want to just take this over? And do you want to be the builder on these things? So they have, I almost call them, they're insulated to a degree. Like,
Yeah.
they may have been hit with like the prices getting reduced, but in a lot of cases, those really, really big players, they don't get impacted like that next tier down. That medium level developer or the guys that were trying to grow to a large, get into the upper echelon,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are really hurting. Like they're the ones that tried to take too big of a leap and the market kind of fell out from under them. And when we talk about Canby Corridor, like, we could talk about Oak Ridge and really as beautiful as it is, it was not tailored for a local market.
Yeah.
And so like when we talk about that and now with, foreign buyer ban, which I think I wasn't against at the time, or a foreign buyer tax, maybe the foreign buyer tax, okay, sure. But you throw those all at people and they're on a 5 to 10-year development horizon and you change the market on them overnight. So Oak Ridge got changed overnight. They're like, we're not selling to locals for the most part. And now all of a sudden a foreign buyer can't buy here or they're
Yeah.
going to tax to death. Who's your market?
Well, I really question as to what that's going to look like when it comes to completion next year. Like, how many of those units are pre-sold? And of the unsold units, who's going to buy them? Especially if foreign buyers are locked out, right? These are not priced at local levels for local people to afford, right?
No.
So it's going to be interesting to see, how many unsold units and how many people actually don't close, don't complete. Because many of those units were pre-sold years ago. I mean, I'm thinking 6, 7 years ago, even longer. I
Well,
remember when
Andrew,
right?
Karim, when our office was at Oak Ridge, where we're hopefully returning next year, they had the big sales center down there. I feel like for a year or two before the mall closed,
2017.
and I mean, that was 2018.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And how the market's changed. I mean, all the taxes, all the foreign buyer bans and this and that.
yeah.
And it's a completely different world today than it was 8 years ago on a macro and micro level. Everything's just changed, right? It's just a different world.
Yeah.
And
Right.
from a development perspective, when, you
Yeah.
know, especially Andrew, like the markets you work, like you work in the west side of Vancouver a lot, you do a lot of higher end product. That product is not always a local buyer. And so those areas that were heavily influenced either by new Canadians or foreign buyers, that market has really taken a much bigger hit than some of the other areas, right?
No
Like,
question. I always said we sold our home, in 2016, 17. And I remember we sold because I knew that when the tap turned off eventually, and it would from all this foreign capital flowing in, that these high priced properties would start to deflate. And it's taken a while, but in the last couple of years, we've seen some pretty hefty price decline at that end of the market because locals can't afford a $4, $5, $6, $7 million plus home. It's just not in their affordability. It's not in their range,
that's right.
right? So,
Okay.
In November, I'm just gonna sort of bring it back a little bit more sort of localized and current. So I'm looking at all residential sales across the board. November of 2025, 1850. Last November, just about 2200. So actually down activity wise about 15%. And November 25 sales actually 20% below the 10-year November average. Prices, though, aren't down as much as the volume is down. I'm looking at uh, prices down benchmark for apartments, maybe down 5%. We're looking at townhouses down 4.4%. Houses are probably the biggest change. They're down, according to these stats, about 13%. So we definitely have seen some softening of prices. We've seen some softening in rental rates. We've seen an expansion of available inventory, and actually some pretty great places have come on the market. I know we've had a few buyers that have been out and they found literally once in a decade kind of properties, and they've been able to buy it without competition and negotiate great prices on them. And it's actually been, from the agent's point of view, it's been really positive market to work in. Are you guys finding the same kinds of things? Like, where are you seeing real opportunity right now?
so for us, and I think you just nailed it, Jeff, is that a lot of our clients that we've sort of educated have realized the opportunity that does exist in the marketplace. We've been quite busy on the west side this year, and I just found that when you look at these averages, I think it's definitely more magnified on the west side, especially in the higher priced properties. There's been some tremendous downward shift in prices, 15, 20% in some cases on the higher priced properties. A lot of these homes are vacant. The owners have gone back overseas. They're not living in them. So we've sold actually quite a few vacant homes that were been vacated. They're not here anymore. And they've been on the market for 150 plus days, some of these properties.
Yeah.
And that's where there's some good opportunity. I've said to my clients, if you can find a house that's vacant and the seller's gone back to where they came from or whatever, and they've been on the market for 6+ months, definitely some good opportunity out there, right? There's some tremendously good price adjustments. But then again, not every seller is that motivated. We've got a listing right now, and the seller just doesn't want to budge on the price, and that's fine. It's overpriced. It's not going to move, most likely. So you got to find those sellers that want to be realistic and adjust in the current market to current market levels. So I think there's opportunity at all segments.
Yes.
Definitely great opportunity in the higher end of the market. I would say 3 million plus, tremendous value out there. Like if you can find a home and they're out there, this is the time to buy. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Like if you're making a
Yeah.
trade up, like if you're selling your townhouse or your half duplex, I mean, that market is actually still very stable and very strong. And if you're
Yeah.
trading that up to a house at the higher price points of whatever market you're in, Karim, would you say that's probably true for you?
100% what Andrew is saying, like in the higher price market, but definitely the trade up. It's there. What I always tell people is don't worry about the price I'm telling you. Let's look at what you want to buy. And the spread is actually better.
Yes.
That's why it's a buyer's market.
Honestly, that word differential is the key. What's that differential now versus a year ago? And that's compelling today, right?
And so that if that spread is more positive, it's actually the time is right now to act. And you might even be able to negotiate terms where you might say subject to sale.
Oh, jeez.
Right.
Yes, Karim.
You're in the complete clear. There's no risk on any side. You might lose the deal, or maybe someone else comes and bids on it if there's a shotgun clause. But that's really the only, you're free and clear. So I find I'm writing more subject to deals lately. I'm seeing a lot more subject to deals. I'm seeing longer closes. One of the other things I like to look at, I had a client that was looking for, I wouldn't say it's a second property, but something like almost like a downsizer property for themselves. And they would get all the listings sent to them. And the ones they'd always ask me about were these beautiful, really well staged, curated pictures. And I would go back through their list and I'd say, what about these ones? Because they meet all your criteria. And they would say, oh, the pictures are ugly. And I'm like, it's tenant occupied.
There's the opportunity.
Either they're showing you vacant shots from before the tenant, or it's in disarray, it's messy or whatever. I'm like, that is your actually if you're an opportunistic, those are the ones we want to look at. Because look at the view, look at this, look at that building. The tenant's not going to keep it staged for whatever. So I'm like, you got to look past some of that stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, even in some of the houses, because these really beautiful homes had to be occupied so they don't against empty homes tax. There's opportunity in some of those listings that don't look that great, but are actually great.
It's Andrew, I'm sure you're the same way. We always look and see who's got the worst photos, the poorest description, hardest to access.
And now listen, the listing agents are doing a massive disservice to their clients in many respects, but that's where the opportunity for us or the buyer's agent is. And the buyers, that's where they're going to get potentially the best deal. And again, we've been into many homes this year that are only sort of 5 to 10 years old. And boy, oh boy, they feel like they're 10 to 15 years old. The sidewalks haven't been power washed. The gutters are overflowing. There's weeds growing out of the flower beds. They haven't serviced the furnace since day one. Just a lot of poor or no maintenance. And again, crappy photos. And that's where the opportunity is. There's no question about it in most cases. And again, we just sold a home which had a number of easy to deal with deficiencies. But I could see how those deficiencies would really turn off a lot of people. And they did. But our buyers came in and got a phenomenal value by recognizing that.
Yeah, perfect.
Right?
I think if anyone wants to build for themselves, you can go and find a lot right now. The value of land is actually the lowest it's been in quite some time, because a lot of developers either, like I said before, they have too much product. They're trying to burn through their current product. And really the prices are still a little too high for them. But if you see a property on a piece of land that you like in an area you like, and you want to personally build, you don't have to get that profit line in there. You can actually get the home you want, where you want. There won't be another time like this for a little while, I don't think.
And I've noticed, and Jeff and I have spoken about this before, a lot of the older homes on the west side, say 1920s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, tired old houses that would be typically, redevelopment plays, land value properties, they are just sitting on the market, even at adjusted prices. And like the 50-foot lot houses that are old, ready for redevelopment, that were priced, 3.6 to 4 million, are now down at 3 to 3.3, and many are not selling at that level. But you can see how that market's really gone in the wrong direction. The builders are all just waiting. They're looking to scoop up phenomenal deals. Otherwise, they're not buying because they need to get it at the right price to keep the profit margin, right?
And more so, it's like one of the big questions I ask people, because they'll look at some of those lots, right, Andrew, and they're like, hey, this is a great deal. Look at what this would have sold for. And the thing I ask them, I go, who's the buyer?
Yes.
Is there a buyer on the other side? Like, yes, you can build this. Who's your buyer? And a lot of times there is no buyer, or that buyer pool is so tiny that it's like, it's too risky,
And
even though it looks like a great play.
And the buyers tend to be fairly sophisticated if they're builders. They know how to crunch the numbers, and they know what they need to do in order to turn a profit. And they've also got to take on the risk of building 2 years later, hoping the market's going to be in their favor. So they're going to build in enough, margin there to make it work. So they're looking for really good deals. Otherwise, they're not buying. So that buyer pool, like you said, really, really thin. And the ones that are going to buy are looking for a tremendously good deal. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for them to take on the risk.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's not many developers, Karim, out there, are there, that'll pay more for more risk, right?
Yeah, right. Like, why would that make any sense? I had this challenge, and I'm guessing you guys did too. People with great properties, maybe a tired old house that was okay, but probably a redevelopment play, like great for living in their current situation. But they thought it was worth so much more because now you could do a multiplex. And
Yeah.
the reality of the market is you can pretty much do a multiplex everywhere.
Yeah.
So that
there is no
yeah.
value jump. There is no value jump from doing a multiplex or being able to do a duplex. And for those few properties that you can only build a single family home, there is a value reduction though.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's gone up in value. It's stayed more flat or down a little bit, but the ones that are more limited they go down even further.
It's so
Karim,
funny. You know what, Karim? It's so true. And I can remember when the first conversations were being had about the multiplex, and, clients were calling me and they're saying, "Oh, what does this mean?" And I said, "Well, more density doesn't usually mean lower prices." But I failed to take into account that when it's all the properties, there's no net effect. And what it does is if there's a few that don't have the ability to do it, instead of all the other ones going at a premium, what ends up happening is the outlier then goes at a discount.
And then what about the properties where you can't build a multiplex? So you're only stuck building out single family and your FSR now is down at 0.6.
Right.
So you're actually in a worse position, right? Under the new zoning, under the R1-1 zoning, 0.6 only allows you to build a 0.6 size house. That's got to have a negative impact on the outcome.
And I've had conversations with the city about this because I'm like, there are some properties that don't have a lane, right? So the old zoning was it's 0.7 for the house. And if you did a laneway house, it was 0.16. So 86% of the lot have 86 FSR. So what they decided to do was go to 0.6, but they wanted the laneway houses to be larger.
Right.
And speaking of the city, the planning department, the way they think about it, they think of everything as a 33-foot lot, right? So they're like, oh, on a 4,000 square foot lot at 25, that's 1,000 square foot laneway house. Great. That's, we could put a family in there. It might be, we'll be able to squeeze in 3 bedrooms, right? So that's how they're thinking. But on a 5,000 or on a 6,000 square foot lot, well, that's a bigger property. The house is good. And really what's happening is those smaller lots, you're eliminating what was the most affordable rental in Vancouver, which was the basement suite. People are just saying, well, now I'm going to just build the house will all be mine and not have a basement suite because the house is smaller. Because on a 4,000 square foot lot, that's a 2,400 square foot house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people don't want laneway houses, right? Depending on where you are situated on the block, right? It actually might be a hassle to have a laneway house. Some people might, hey, we have multiple electric vehicles, right? We have 2 electric cars, right? So what does that mean? And so what I was saying to the city was go maximum 0.7. And for everything they do, if they want a 20% laneway house, then they can go down to 0.65. Still stays within your 85% FSR window that you had. And I go, and it should be able to go up to 0.75, really, right? Let them have a big house with suites or whatever. And maybe the same with duplexes. Like, let duplexes go up to 0.75 because that matches some of the other zones. Like, I don't think we should be, like, that 5% actually makes a difference in layout.
Yes. And how much is
Especially
in the
in
ground?
duplexes, right? So maybe houses top out at 0.7, duplexes 0.75, multiplexes, the full 1 FSR. So I've had those conversations and they were well received, especially by the senior people. They understand that. But the planning department, they're always thinking about the smallest lots and how to put the right kind of density on. But there's a lot of lots that I see that don't have lanes or don't fit that traditional architecture. It's like, well, that house now they can only build, they're not wide enough for a duplex.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they don't have a back lane. So you're building an 1,800 square foot house on that lot.
Yeah.
So they've been negatively
1,800 is
impacted.
just not enough space for what we need. So move on. And those lots are just sitting. And then also on the flip side of it, there's 9,000 square foot lots on the west side that have no back lane. And so it's like, what are you going to build there? You're going to build a giant duplex?
And just for our listeners, can you just quickly explain FSR, floor space ratio, and what that means?
Yeah, so floor space ratio, it's set by the municipality, and some call it floor area, FAR or FSR. We typically say FSR in Vancouver. And what it is you take the lot size and you multiply it by the FSR. So when Andrew was saying, it used to be 60% for, or currently is 60% for houses in Vancouver. It used to be 70%. So on a 4,000 square foot lot, for instance, you used to be able to get times 70%, you used to get a 2,800 square foot house over multiple levels. Now on a 4,000 square foot lot, you would times it by 60% to get to 2,400. So you're only allowed to build a 2,400 square foot house. And so it's 400 square feet smaller. And really that density has moved now. If you want to build a laneway house, which used to be 16%, now you can build up to 25%.
So your laneway house is now taking up the difference. It is making up the difference if you want a laneway house.
And that's the thing, though. It's if you want a laneway house. So I think part of their reasoning behind it is they wanted to push people away from building single family homes. The reality is, in my mind, a single family home can actually be more affordable to someone. I know for myself, when we built our home, we have a basement suite. We also have a laneway house. That rental income actually made more sense than me building a duplex. Right. And I would have been in more or less space. I couldn't build a duplex at the time we built our house. So that's almost irrelevant. But, when people start factoring in those, or, mom and dad are going to live with me because they're older, like you can have some, whatever rationale you have. But I think that affordability piece, there is an affordability piece to that. For some people, especially the younger people that are trying to do that move up, it makes it a bit more challenging when you start going to 0.6. I don't know. I think the dream for a lot of people is still that single family home.
Yes,
It is, and I think it's getting harder and harder to attain.
it is.
And
Actually, you touched on something that we should probably get into, just given the time of year that it is. So we're seeing a lot of families buying together. We're seeing a lot of conversations around the family home. So, a very typical thing that I'll hear about often in January is, oh yeah, we got together as a family over the holidays. Mom and dad were there and they said, wow, gosh, the house is just getting to be a little too much for us and we want to move and sell. Or the kids are having or the adult children rather, they're having the conversation with mom or dad saying, gosh, you know what? The house is really big. Maybe we want to stop worrying about you so much. Maybe it's time to sell that. Have you guys got any thoughts or advice for families when they're getting together to talk about different generational housing needs?
Well, call us the realtor. We can come in and tell them exactly what they need to do. That's why we always get these phone calls in. Early usually, in fact, we just got a call yesterday from someone, exact conversation. Want us to come in before Christmas because they're going to downsize and they want to declutter and the whole thing, right? But you usually get those calls in January for kind of February, March listings, right? So again, I think it's just mapping out a game plan for them, getting their home market ready, educating them on the market, making sure they're fully aware of what their home is currently worth. They're probably a little bit out of sync with the market because it has changed.
Yes.
So you want to educate your clients, have good data to back up and show them why you're saying, well, this is what the market is and why that is, because you got the data behind it. And then, finding out what their needs are. And then look, not to keep being repetitive, but there's great opportunity, whether they're going to go downsize, go lateral, or whatever, the opportunity's out there. So it's really, and I think when it's a retirement sort of, or a retired couple downsizing out of their big house, it's not always so much, the numbers are important, but it's also, their needs have changed. So it's now a case of things are going on in their lives that are precipitating them to need to move. And so regardless of what the numbers look like, this is the right time for them to make that move, because 4,000 square feet is too much space for them to maintain and manage. And it's beyond their ability at this stage, right? So it's really knowing the market, coming to terms with it, and then identifying them. And there's opportunity at all segments of the market.
Yeah, and timing your life. Karim, would you say they're better off, like if you're downsizing, I guess if you've got the financial means, it's an easy answer. You buy whatever you're buying first, and then you sell your house for what you can sell it for. But if you're in that position where, you're going to be using the proceeds of your home to fund your retirement as well as buy the next place, to me, it's always made more sense to sell first, even if that's a bit precarious for not knowing exactly where you want to go. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely like to tailor depending on the situation. But I think in general, typically selling first is better. I'm in one of those right now. Mom wants to sell. She's got the big house. She's by herself now. Wants to move closer to her son, but also still have her independence. So not be in his home, right? But if she's a block away, that would be ideal, you know? And so I definitely think the goal is to sell first because then they know exactly what they have. In other cases, it's, we used to see that thing, especially in Dunbar, Andrew, like, where you saw people selling those family homes. They're like, oh, okay, here's a bunch of money for you, 2 kids. Go buy your homes in Main Street, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna downsize into this and be nearby you guys and be close to the grandkids and all those things. So I don't think the market's like that anymore. But I still think in general, selling first, just so you know what you have and where you can go, and typically doing a longer completion just so you can get rid of all that stuff. Stuff tends to accumulate in those homes, I find.
It's a lot less stressful selling, knowing your dates, and then going shopping for a home. And we'll tell a lot of our clients, educate yourself on the market first. Go out and look at some open houses, get a feel for what's out there. Go look at some of the projects that might be of interest to you because maybe you're going into a condo or a retirement home or this and that. Do your homework first so that when you're ready to list your home, you're confident that there's going to be something out there. You've seen it or you've seen a few of them. And so you know that selling first is going to be okay because there's a high probability within the next 6 weeks after selling, 2 or 3 opportunities are going to pop up because you've already seen them pop up and sell. Like they're out there, right? So being educated before you list is a great way to sort of satisfy that concern of, oh, well, if I sell, where am I going to go? I don't know what's out there. So you want to do the homework first. And for a lot of our elderly clients, their kids will take them out, give them some help sort of educating them. And we'll do the same thing as well. But information is power. The more information you have, the easier it's going to be to make that transition because a lot of these people have been in their homes 45 years and they've got 45 years of stuff in the basement.
Yeah.
The basements are like museums. It's fantastic, right? You can find an old Zenith TV set from 1961 down there. Beautiful piece of art, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and as part of that conversation too, I think it really comes into center stage when people start thinking, well, how much is it actually costing me to run this house? Like, even if they're deferring their property taxes, that's a big chunk of it. They've got their home insurance, they've got all the utilities, maintenance and repairs. And everybody says, oh, I haven't really done anything to my house for 5 or 10 years or whatever. Well, that's deferred maintenance then that somebody else is going to have to pick up. But if you think back to how much it actually costs to keep a home running and to do all these things, a lot of times it's not sort of a choice. It's almost a necessity that you need to downsize and take some of those things off. So I think whenever you're meeting with your folks or you're talking to your adult children about what it is that you want to do, I think to take into consideration all these things. I mean, we know more often than not, the biggest part of that equation is getting the home sold. But and again, depending on what your circumstances are. So Karim, your point, you kind of tailor to each one. If you're looking for that sort of one of a kind, once in a decade kind of apartment or townhouse or whatever it is you want to move into, you've really got to be prepared for it when it comes on the market so that you can get your home sold. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit more, I don't want to say commonly occurring, but commonly occurring, that there's always a lot of availability, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in a concrete tower somewhere or a wood frame. There's always lots of those to choose from, right? So it's just a matter of picking the best one. But if you can have all that information and if you need it, certainly come to us. We're happy to provide it for you if you want to start that conversation. And it doesn't need to happen all in one fell swoop. I can think of a lot of times where we've had a preliminary meeting with the family and 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, we actually do something. But when it came time to do it, everybody was very comfortable with what was happening because they'd done their homework in advance. They'd started to make preparations for getting the home sold and just sort of working it from there. The other thing too, and we're seeing a lot of this, is some of our older parents, they're starting to take in some of these tours of some of the great retirement communities, tons available around Vancouver and lots of different options. You'll go for a tour, you have a little lunch, you'll check it out and you kind of get comfortable with it. And I don't know what you guys have experienced, but by and large for us, just about everybody that I've known that's moved to that, if they've done it sort of young enough that they can go and cultivate some new friendships, buy in and be a part of that community, in a lot of cases, they've really come back to life, like in a way that we were starting to think they were on the downward trend. And all of a sudden they're invigorated, they're excited, they're getting up, they're going down for coffee, they're meeting their friends, they're going on a bowling excursion, like whatever they're doing. And it can be a very positive move. It doesn't necessarily need to be a bit of a downer.
I can remember a couple of years ago meeting a client at Crofton Manor on 41st, and she had me meet her in the dining room. And I said to her, I said, "It's like being on a cruise ship. It's like maybe it's not moving, but I feel like it had a cruise ship environment to it." And since then, we've been to a few of the independent living homes because of our clients who transitioned. And Jeff, you're bang on. Everyone that's moved in that we know, it's been a really positive experience for them. And the big part of it is really just the socialization.
Yeah.
And all the activities. I think they're fantastic. I mean, there's that new one that's being built right now at 45th and Granville. Amica are building that massive
Yes.
independent living. And that's because they know that the baby boomers are getting to the point now where they're retiring and many want to move into that type of environment. I think they're fantastic when the time is right. There's so much going on in those, and I think it keeps the residents young and active. I think it's a fabulous model, no question.
I was really reminded of this. I was out for a walk with a mortgage broker, and we're walking along having a cup of coffee just on Jericho. And coming the other way was this client of mine who they'd sold out of their apartment and they moved out to UBC, and just full of life, full of energy, just
Yeah.
super excited. And I just thought, oh my gosh, give me some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how many seniors are sitting at home in an old house? They've been there 45 years. Maybe they're widowed.
Yeah.
The kids maybe visit them once a week. Social isolation.
Yeah.
Into one of these beautiful independent living complexes, and they're, as you said, they're dotted all over the city. I think they're not cheap, but if you've got a, like $3, $4, $5 million home, you can afford it, and it's a great way to transition, no question.
For sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I jump in on something totally?
Yeah.
It triggered a thought. I remember when the city started coming out with multiplexes, and one of their big marketing ideas around it was, oh, this mom can stay in place. She can stay in the neighborhood.
Age in place. Yeah.
That has not come to fruition.
No.
And the reason why is because even if your plan is to stay in that same property because you know all the neighbors, you still have to move out for 2 years.
Yeah.
Go through that process of taking out all the Zenith TVs in the basement, Andrew, and everything else. It's like, it feels like the work is done. That the chances of them ever moving back,
That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
No.
Right?
Once they're out, and they're going to be to do a double move when you're 78 years old. It's not going to happen.
No.
It's too
Right.
much.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was always false marketing in my mind. And the reality is that's showing. It's really showing that.
Good point. Good point.
I'm just looking at the time and I'm thinking, what a great conversation. Perfect. And thank you. I want to add a little piece just for the end of our program today. And that's just coming from a place of gratitude. I know it has been a tough year for many agents, and I know that many of the clients are out there sort of feeling the pinch on things. And overall, though, I just want to say we're living in a great city. We're blessed by a lot of peace and great weather and these sorts of things. So as much as there is a lot of turmoil out there, this is my message of hope and happiness. I'm thinking we're probably going to have a good December. I think everybody take the opportunity to build those relationships, visit with people, reach out to a friend or your family and make that connection. Going into 26, let's do our year-end wrap up in January and our predictions at that point.
Jennifer, I couldn't have said it better. I think feeling grateful. interesting times, a lot of turmoil out there. But at the end of the day, you got your health, you got your family. We live in a beautiful city. Nature doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah.
You
Safe,
think
dry,
it's
and
coming
well
up?
fed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You
Well,
guys
that
coming up?
concludes it for today. Hey, what a great to catch up today. And Karim, thanks for joining us. Good conversation regarding multiplexes and a bit of construction and all that stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks a million, guys.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in today. We appreciate your time and your attention. If we can be of further help or information, we look forward to hearing from you. We respectfully acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.